where did life come from on our planet? In accordance with the primitive concepts of the Middle Ages, it was believed that living things can come from non-living things, that frogs come from mud, and insects come from food scraps. The idea of spontaneous generation of life from inanimate matter, based on ancient superstitions and not on scientific research, became widespread in the time of Darwin and was refuted scientifically by the French biologist Louis Pasteur, who discovered the law of biogenesis. Life arises only from already existing life. The myth of obtaining living beings by mixing inanimate matter has finally faded into history. In Darwin's time, nothing was known about the structure of the cell. Primitive microscopes of that time defined a cell as an elementary spot. Electron microscopes developed in the middle of the 20th century showed the complex and organized structure of the cell. A living cell includes thousands of particles interacting with each other. The cell contains within itself mechanisms that generate energy like power plants, produce immune hormones necessary for life. These are systems for the collection and implementation of complexes, advanced laboratories for cleansing processes, sensitive mechanisms that control every movement of the cell. A coordinated interaction of structures is necessary to keep the cell alive. Such a system, where everything is so interconnected, could not have arisen by chance. In the 20th century, the Russian evolutionary biologist Oparin touched upon the mystery of the origin of life. The scientist's efforts to find out how the first living cell was formed were unsuccessful. He was forced to admit the following: unfortunately, the origin of the cell forms the darkest point, dragging down the whole theory of evolution. The American chemist Miller, having made the most famous experiment, aimed at giving an evolutionary explanation for the origin of life. Later, he recognized himself the failure of this experiment. All attempts of the evolutionists of the 20th century to explain the origin of life ended in failure. Work on obtaining a living cell from inanimate matter was stopped. The biggest dead end for the theory of evolution is the incredibly complex structure of the living cell, which simply cannot be explained by random occasion. All living things are made up of cells, the dimensions of which are hundredths of a millimeter. Some organisms consist of only one such cell, but even they have a very complex structure. These organisms have various functions necessary for life and even mini engines that set them in motion. The well-known American mathematician and astronomer Professor Fred Hoyle explains the unreality of this process in this way. The formation of a living cell by random chance on the principle of by itself is as impossible as the creation of the Boeing 747 by a hurricane by pure chance from a pile of junk. Modern biochemistry has proven that not only cells, but also the DNA contained in the cell, has a very complex structure. The evolutionist who was awarded the Nobel Prize for this discovery is forced to admit that such a complex system as deoxyribonucleic acid cannot be formed by chance. DNA is the most complex helical molecule found in the nucleus of every cell. In this molecule, all the physical features of the body are encrypted, starting with the color of the eyes, the structure of the internal organs, and ending with the shape of our cells. The DNA code consists of 4 molecules. Let's represent each of them in the form of a letter. All data about the body is collected in this bank of data. If you start writing DNA data on paper, then this data will take up a place equal to 1,000,000 pages, and it will be an encyclopedia that is 40 times larger than the Encyclopedia Britannica. All this information is hidden in the nuclei of cells, the size of which is equal to hundredths of a millimeter. It is believed that a teaspoon-sized chain of DNA can contain the materials of all the books in the world that have been printed to this day. Undoubtedly, such a complex structure could not have arisen by itself. The theory of evolution, which attributes the origin of all living things to chance, has been powerless to explain how a structure as complex as the DNA molecule could have arisen. The DNA protein, the cell, in a word, all living things, is the product of a perfect production. Great creations of this kind speak of a creator with limitless power, knowledge, and wisdom. He is the beginning of life. Subscribe to the channel of Stanislav and Julia Saltynenko to learn more.